This is the Peter Greenwood Show at the Glasgow Film Festival. This is my 6th year doing this.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. It's fun. I love this festival.
Are you finding it easier?
Yes, but also the equipment gets a little bit heavier every year I get older.
Okay, fair enough.
But we're not here to discuss me, we're here to discuss you. Could you tell me your name and your film, please?
Sure, I'm Felipe Bustos Sierra, and I'm the director-producer of Everybody to Kenmure Street.
How are you today, Felipe? Are you well?
I'm good. It's a good day. It's the UK premiere tonight.
How does that feel, having a film that's a UK premiere and opening the Glasgow Film Festival?
I mean, it's a humbling experience, but also I'm just very excited. It's for many people who were part of the, we were part of making the film, or part of the protest, is their first opportunity to actually see the film. We haven't had that many public screenings in Scotland. I think my only frame of reference is my previous film, Ne Passaran, which was also, a story from my childhood, but another story of solidarity from Scotland for Chile at the time, closed the festival back in 2018. And that was just a beautiful kind of core memory experience. And so I'm just really excited for tonight. And, I know it's packed and there's going to be a lot of familiar faces. There's this thing with, making documentaries over such a period of time, and there's little funding and you're in your bubble. So often everybody's been part of it. We don't really ever get to be in the same room. But tonight is one of these occasions. So that alone is something to look forward to.
It must be very exciting and very cathartic to have it out there. Like, this is what we've been doing. Because for those who don't know, what is Everybody to Kenmure Street?
So on the 13th of May 2021 in the south side of Glasgow, an immigration van turned up as part of the kind of dawn raid strategy from the Home Office to remove people from the country whose immigration status was unapproved. But it turned out on the day that clearly this wasn't the case for these two guys. And they turned up a bit later than usual, which I think gave the opportunity for many people to actually witness the van, understand very quickly what this was about, and had this, it's something that's throughout the film, it made you split the second decision of like, what do I do about this? And, some neighbors just really, still in their pajamas, ran on the street, quickly surrounded the van, and there was very much this tactic of taking up space and buying time for somebody else to come in and maybe have a better idea. And throughout the day, people finding creative ways to just disarm the situation, diffuse the situation, finding ways again to, buy time for people to come in.
And you captured this, and a ton of other people captured it as well. It was all on social media. I remember watching it as it happened, sitting in my flat in 2021 watching this. How do you distill everything that happened, from the emotions, the people on the street, all the activities that were happening, into a movie? That must be very difficult.
I mean, it was a long process. I mean, part of it was the challenge. Part of it that was really exciting is how do we tell a story out of footage that wasn't really designed to be telling a story, to be projected on the big screen. So much of the footage that day was captured to really get more people to the streets. So there was sort of urgency to it, people treating the smartphones like a Hoover, and at times probably not really fully understanding what they were capturing. And so it's been, a really long process finding new footage, but parallel to this, carrying out all these interviews. My reason for getting into the film was that I was living in Govan Hill that day, just a 10-minute walk from the protest. I received a similar text message as everybody else. This is happening, come to Kenmure Street. And I really didn't see the hope, and I didn't turn up. And, I was following on social media. Around 5:30 that day, I saw the footage that went viral. I think 10 million views online from one of the neighbors filming from their window of the van doors opening up and these guys being sort of welcomed into this massive crowd of people that had amassed. And I'd been there for them all day. And I felt I not only had missed out on that kind of expression of collective joy, which, to me, this is how you live a happy life, just this manifestation of empathy with your immediate neighbors and friends. But I also felt, because, I've got my own background of being the son of a refugee from Chile, and solidarity has been a big part of our life, I think I felt I let people down for my own past, right, by not turning up. And so the next day, I was on the street. It was lockdown. Restrictions were pretty heavy. So it was really a process of out of curiosity at first, going out for a walk around Queen's Park with somebody different every day. And, trying to asking questions about to understand the mechanics of the day, but also kind of the bigger questions about, how much time do you have in your life for this? What inspired you to come, which obviously informed the rest of the film. So it's been a really long process to get there.
What was the, I don't want to say common answer, but why did so many people come to Kenmure Street?
It's really varied. I mean, part of it is Glasgow's rich history of solidarity. What was really felt really new to me, it felt really exciting, is that nobody turned up thinking this is going to pan out. Nobody seemed to know that. It wasn't, that happy outcome wasn't inevitable. And yet people turned up. And they were all turned up for different reasons. Some were because it was like, well, we have to. This is what's happened in my family, or this is what happened to my friend, or I've got these stories I've learned and I've heard from the past, and I feel like this is my time to show up. I talked to many young people who turned up to the protest for the first time in their life, to a protest for the first time in their life. And they were saying to me, I was just angry that I feel like this is happening on our doorstep. And I'm just here because I feel nobody's ever done anything about this before. And so I'm going to do something about it. And I mean, that's great. The impulse is there, but also, doing a little bit of research about Glasgow, you realize people have been doing this in Glasgow for centuries. And this is a long tradition of speaking to power and standing up to power. And so I think this idea of how do we get all these kind of personal motivations and throughout the film and get a sense of, there's 33 people in the film. There was no leaders on the day. So it's kind of carried through this word of mouth and it's kind of baton relay storytelling. And it was getting a sense of, I think it's for a broad audience. And somebody might come to see this film, not really know anything about what happened. They might identify with somebody who was on the street and that's a way in. It's how you find your solidarity and your spirit of collectiveness, which I think is clearly missing. And if there was more of it, there'd be less of a need for protest, probably.
I want to touch on something you mentioned there, which is one of the things I felt on the day watching it was the hopelessness of it and the anger of it, because we'd seen these immigration protests at the time and also today in the United States and all over the world. And it's so, I don't want to say easy, but it's easy to feel, well, there's nothing I can do. I am one person. But when one person goes with one person and then another person, it all builds. And capturing that and editing that down, what was that process like?
I mean, generally, there was a real privilege to see this evolve as we're building our timeline. At some point, I realized myself and Colin Money, the editor, that we're like, maybe 2 years into the process, we're the only ones who actually know what happened on Kenmure Street, because, talking to people, they were maybe in their little pocket at one end of the street and they were there for 8 hours, but they only saw the perspective from their particular point of view, and we were able to assemble that together. We had this lovely thing just a couple of days ago of finally being able to have a cast and crew screening, and you're inviting many people who were interviewed and maybe people who were at the protest. And one of the weirdest thing was, getting Van Man to come, and and he was wiping tears from his eyes, and he's like, I realized that I didn't really know what went on fully on Kenmure Street. He had this perspective of being under the van, so it was a humbling experience, and so grateful for so many people who sent footage that were able to tell the story so comprehensively. And really an eye-opener of, just the basic mechanics of how protest evolved in the 21st century.
Were there any people that did stand out for you when you watched back the footage and you were like, I need to contact this person, that person? And how did you contact them? And how did they feel recollecting the day? Did they have the same feelings they felt then, or how did they feel about it after the event?
That's a good question. Part of making documentaries in Scotland, you're basically going to be in it for a few years of your life, and it's quite an immersive experience. And especially, Nepa Serrano was about an event for 50 years ago. This was, we weren't recapturing anything new. Everything happened in one day, but it felt that everybody who'd been there were still going through the process of the times we're living in, and the pressure and the constraints on trying to protest these days are much more difficult now than they were even 4 years ago. So it required a lot of trust to build up a project, which was good then in that case, not to have funding, but then to have time. And really, I think it was the simple effect of just talking to somebody different each day expanded the circle of trust around the project. So eventually I got to Van Man, obviously, had a pretty unusual vantage from anybody else on the day. And then he told me about this nurse that turned up 15 minutes later after he got underneath the van, who really, looked after him. And he realized, I had this impulse reaction and I managed to, prevent the van from leaving immediately. But now I don't really know what's going to happen to me or how long can I stay there. And then, she looked after him. But then all these people came to the protest that had an experience of down raids before, the people like Rosa Sally or Pinar Aksu, who sort of were able to kind of bring that knowledge to the street. And there's somebody, there's a Mohammed Asif, who's an Afghani community leader, who himself was a refugee from Afghanistan 20 years ago, has gone through that process of really protest and and has won quite a few times. And so I think they were able to bring a certain level-headedness to this. That yes, there's anger, but if it's all anger, it's just going to end up in a riot, and you're rarely going to get a good outcome out of this. So it was just fascinating to see just all these different people coming in together, and then people from the local area were just trying to feed people. Women who were like, okay, we're going to be staying here. How do we create a space? Let's bring sanitary towels to the bus stop. Let's bring food. Let's bring water. Let's open our doors so people can use the toilets. Let's really create a space that people can come in. Nobody has to leave. They're going to be fed. They're going to be looked after. And maybe we'll get a good outcome out of this. So, it's been a pleasure to put together and be feeling part of it.
I feel that is one thing that Glasgow does particularly well is community, because it doesn't matter where you're from, who you are, you're welcome in Glasgow. And watching the footage of the day, as you said, there were people from every walk of life just helping others, and that's, in my personal opinion, how community should be.
No, absolutely. And it's so simple in a way, I think sometimes people try to look too hard for like what was the key thing that made it work. The basic act of turning up is so simple, but it's revolutionary in its day. I talked to somebody who was like an older Muslim woman who didn't want to be interviewed, but she desperately wanted to be a part of the protest. She just felt it was so abhorrent what was happening on the streets. But at the same time, our comfort zone are so different, our safety nets are so different. And she said to me, the idea of like standing up to a male police officer, it made her shake, right? And so it's like, so I can't look at it like this. So she said, I'm just going to look at my feet and look at a piece of ground, and I'm going to claim that and just be present in that moment. And if I don't get moved from this, that's my victory. And so not only she didn't get moved, but then part of her being there on the street led to, these men being released. And it's so simple. But sometimes, these gestures have happened in Glasgow through time. People have turned up over and over for people didn't know and got amazing results out of it. And we tend to forget that sometimes how simple it is. I think particularly in the age of social media, we're looking for instant gratification. We want to know we're going to get something out of this before we turn up. And clearly that's not going to work in the context of a protest. And, what I loved is everybody telling me they had this feeling of, being really altruistic. I'm turning up to help 2 people in a van. Don't know anything about them. I just think, what's happening to them? That's not how you form a good community. And we're going to stay there. And then 8 hours later, the van doors open and they all were like, holy shit, I got something out of this, right? And it was unexpected, but I think that's where the true power of that story lies.
I'd like to ask a little bit about the distribution of this film, because at one point Emma Thompson got involved. She's exec producer, I believe.
She is, yeah.
What was that conversation like?
Again, very organic. So many times making this film, we're trying, how do we mirror how the protest evolved and how do we get that element of surprise? And, as when Ne Passerán first came out, I one day received a letter from Emma Thompson who'd seen the film. She has her own connection with Chile. It's a story that the story of what happened to Chile is something that moved her really much and was really close to her heart. And so she wrote me a letter, and little advice: when Emma Thompson writes to you, you write her back.
Yes.
And so there was a correspondence that we've kept over the years. And then so when it came to the, because of lockdown and just being in a space where there's a lot of headspace to think about this project without being able to film anything or record anything properly. And when both Van Man and the nurse were telling me that, they were happy to share their testimony, but maybe not be in the film themselves. And so, so when, talking to Van Man and the nurse and realized there's an element of safeguarding around this film. We're still going through, all these, there's still deportations going on, the immigrations is clearly, it shouldn't be, but it's been put forward as another topic of the day. And how do we look after these people but get them safely in the film? And I thought these were going to be actors. And at the time I thought it'd be really funny and really powerful if, when it comes time to introduce the character of Van Man in the film, it's Emma Thompson saying, "Hi, I'm Van Man." And that felt true to how the process evolved in some way, but also it's been amazing to kind of have that creative element to the project too.
I don't know if you're still in touch with Van Man. How did Van Man feel about being portrayed by Emma Thompson?
I love that.
Wouldn't we all love to be portrayed by Emma Thompson?
It'd be the best.
It would be. I'm going to pull off a mask and I'm Emma Thompson. So
absolutely.
What is next for you and the film?
The film is, it's a premiere tonight. It just went to Sundance. All these things are shocking in a way. We've definitely been making this film in a bubble, so it's amazing that all of a sudden so many people are going to get to see it at once. We're going to be in cinemas across the UK and Ireland from the 13th of March. We're doing a run of Q&As in a moment, and at the same time it's playing at quite a few festivals abroad. So it's keeping us busy for the time being, and really, really delighted to be supporting this film.
Thank you so much for your time today. It was lovely to meet you, Felipe. Good luck with the film.
A pleasure. Thank you so much.
Everybody to Kenmure Street will be touring across Scotland, with director Felipe doing Q&As after every screening. For more information, go to GlasgowFilm.org and search Everybody to Kenmure Street. For the Peter Greenwood Show at the Glasgow Film Festival, I've been your host, Peter Greenwood. I'll see you next time.